You are welcome to Sunch Academic YouTube series. If you are preparing for PMP exams, as you are already aware, PMP exams is not all about cramming or memorization. It's all about understanding the concepts of how to answer a PMP question. I'll be taking you through the tricks, techniques on how to answer a well-structured PMP questions. I have carefully selected 20 questions that are PMP standard scenario-based questions. I'll be walking you through these questions on how to answer these questions and how to be able to pass your PMP exams. Just sit down, pause any question, and follow as we take you through the 20 selected questions. Thank you very much. Question 1. You are managing a construction building project. During the design optimization, the engineering team proposes replacing the armored copper cable. For power distribution system with a lower cost aluminum armored cable alternative to reduce upfront costs. The client is primarily concerned about the long-term operational expenses and future performance. What should the project manager do next? Approve the aluminum armored cable for power distribution system to meet the project's cost baseline. B. Reject the proposal because copper cables are better conductor than aluminum. C. Perform a life cycle cost analysis comparing both options. D. Escalate the decision to the sponsor for final approval. Questions like this, you just eliminate them. Escalate because the client himself is depending on you as a solution provider. So let's go back through the option. Approve the aluminum armored cable for power distribution system to meet the project cost baseline. Well, already from the question, it said approve the aluminum armored cable. The question is talking about aluminum copper cable for power distribution with a lower cost. It's cheaper. Are you to approve it? Let's see. Let's just mark this for now and see and go through the other options and see. Reject the proposal because copper cable are better conductor than aluminum. Why are you rejecting the proposal? That is the question. You can reject the proposal, but why? On what ground are you rejecting? He said copper cables are better conductor than aluminum. What analysis have you done to show that copper conductor are better than aluminum? What analysis have you done? What technical analysis have you done? So let's keep this aside first and see if there's a better option. Then C, say perform a life cycle cost analysis comparing both options. This looks more like it. You compare analysis. You analyze between copper and cable, copper and aluminum. You form a table. Copper on one side, aluminum on another side, on another part of the table. You analyze quality for quality. Which is better? Cost, performance, which is better? It's after you must have done all this analysis before you now come to the conclusion that aluminum is better than copper or copper is better than aluminum. Escalate the decision to the sponsor for final approval. This looks more reactionary. You don't do this because you have to have a solution. The client expects you to have solution to the problem at hand. So you don't go back to the client to help you solve what you are supposed to do on your own. So from our options, C looks technically like the best answer and the best choice here. Perform a life cycle cost analysis comparing both options. Let's go through our option and see. Option. The correct answer is C, so that means we are very correct. Perform a life cycle cost analysis comparing both options. PMP logic, why C is the correct answer. PMP focuses on value over project life, not just purchase price. life cycle cost analysis. So the first thing you do, you compare the initial cost between aluminum and copper, which is better, which is cheaper. But from the question, we are told that the project engineer has done that, and he said the project engineer finding is that aluminum is cheaper. So beyond that, energy consumption, aluminum might be cheaper, but it consumes more energy. So we have to compare it, the long-term effects, just as the client consigned. The long-term effects, buying cheaper now might mean more cost tomorrow. So the client is concerned about that. So you have to do the analysis, which consumes more energy. Then the third one, maintenance, which is easier to maintain. Then D, replacements. In terms of replacement, you want to replace which is easier to replace between aluminum and conductor and copper. You have to do this analysis for you to say this is the best, for you to conclude that this is the best option for you. So the correct answer is C. Question 2. During a project execution, a risk that was identified at the start of the project occurs. The project manager discovers that a response exists, but it hasn't been implemented yet. What should the project manager do next? Okay, let's look at it carefully. Let's look at the question. A key risk that was identified at the start of the project occurs. The project manager discovers that a risk response exists but hasn't been implemented yet. What should the project manager do? If it's a risk that is already in the risk register and there is a response attached to the risk, then your job as a project manager becomes easier. But let's look at the options. Update the risk register. Is that the first thing you are supposed to do? Next, implement the plan risk response to action. That looks more like the first thing to do. Then C, carry out a root cause analysis. We are going to do this, but this is not the first thing for us to do. Inform the stakeholders about the issue. This is reactionary. You are going to inform the stakeholders, but until after you must have solved the problem. That should not be your first option, informing the stakeholders, because you are supposed to be the solution provider as the project manager. So using PMI analysis logic, the first thing for you to do is, since there is a response already, you implement the response action. Then the second thing is you update the risk register. After you must have updated the risk register, then you can carry out the root cause analysis. After you have carried out the root cause analysis, then you can inform the stakeholders about these issues. What funny thing note you should take about PMI questions is that all options, especially PMP questions, all options can be very correct. Like in this case, all options are correct. But what are you supposed to do first, especially for field engineers and field project managers? You discover that these are things you'd see on site on daily basis. What do? Implement the risk response immediately. That should be your first action. Before then, you now update your risk register, then carry out root cause analysis. Then, after you must have done all this, you can now inform the stakeholder. So the correct answer is B. Let's see. The correct answer is B. Implement the plan risk response to action. We are very correct. So let's go to the third question. Question number 3. You are a project manager of a multi-story building. The project is 70% complete. During the monthly site meeting, a senior stakeholder suggests the need to add extra safety features. The addition is minimal, and he promises to sort out the paperwork. Okay, you find this is a common thing on sites, on a project site. The features will add to the cost and schedule of the project, but will greatly improve the safety. What should you do first? Common PMP question. What should you do first? During the monthly site meeting, the senior stakeholder suggests that they need to add extra safety measures. The addition is minimal. It's tempting, and it promises to sort out the paperwork later. The features will add to the costs and schedule of the project. Already, this is a concern. So let's look at the options. Reject the request because the project is 70% complete. You don't just reject outrightly. We have to there is safety concern here. Safety is very important in every project site. So we don't just reject. We have to look at, compare and see what between the safety, cost and schedule, how we are going to manage the three together. Ask the team to implement suggestions immediately for safety reasons, and also for the reason that safety should always come first. Yes, this might be true. Submit a change request through the change control board. Okay, I will explain this shortly. Update the risk register and proceed with the changes immediately. Okay, these are the steps to take. For such questions, the first thing to do is you don't just implement change first. You must have done your analysis. Then you take your analysis to the change control board with reasons for and against, the pros and cons of it. Then is it now for the change control board to now decide if the new suggestion should be implemented. In PMP projects, PMI expects you that every change must go through the change control board. You don't just change anything on site just because of you feel that is good, because otherwise if you keep changing, you have scope creep, what we call scope creep in a project. So to avoid this, you have to take all changes to the change control board. After, you must have looked at your budgets, if your budgets can take that project, because if you keep changing, obviously you have an issue. You have issue at the end of the day where your budget will not be able to fund the project, and the project will become an abandoned project, a failed project. So we try to avoid that. Everything has to be documented, analyzed and documented. So let's look at the option C. Here is the correct answer. Let's look at we are correct. Woo! So the correct answer is C. Submit a change request through the change control board. That is the ideal thing for you to do. You don't just take a unilateral decision. Every change has to go through the change control board. That is what PMI expects you to do. Change control board first before any change can be made. Question 4. During a project life cycle, a team member informs the project manager that a critical task will be delayed due to some technical issues beyond their control. The delay may impact the project schedule. However, its exact impact has yet to be determined. What is the best action for the project manager? A. The project manager should update the schedule and inform the stakeholders immediately. B. Implement the corrective action to enable the project to be realigned with the initial completion date. C. Analyze the impacts and update the risk register. D. Submit a change request to the change control board for approval to extend the completion date. Okay, let's look at the question again. During a project life cycle, a project manager informs the project manager that a critical task will be delayed due to some technical issues beyond their control. The delay may impact the project schedule. However, its exact impact has yet to be determined. What is the best action for the project manager? A. The project manager should update the schedule and inform the stakeholders immediately. Is that the first thing for the project manager to do? Let's see. Let's look at other options. The project manager can do this, but is that the best? Implement the corrective action to enable the project to be realigned with the initial completion date. Implement the corrective action. But what corrective action are you implementing here? Let's look at the question again. Say the delay may impact the project schedule. However, its exact impact has yet to be determined. What is the best action? Informs the project manager that a critical task will be delayed due to some technical beyond their control. Implement the corrective action to enable the project to be realigned with the initial completion date. Analyze the impact and update the risk register. D. Submit a change request to the change control board for approval to extend the completion date. Submit a change request for approval to extend it. You can do this, but is this the first thing to do? The first thing to do, let's look at we have three options now. We have three options here. Let's look at it again. The project manager should update the schedule and inform the stakeholders immediately. Yes, the project manager can update this new schedule, the delay, but remember the question is still saying the exact impact, that is the exact impact of the schedule, is yet to be known. So how can you know this exact impact until you must have analyzed the issue at stake? You must analyze the issue at stake. Let's look at this. Analyze the impacts before you know the exact impact it has on the project. However, its exact impact has yet to be determined. It's only analysis that will help you analyze the best impact. Submit a change request. You should do this first before submitting a change request. This comes first. C comes first before D. You have to analyze first, know what is at stake, then before you submit a change request to the change control board for approval to extend the completion date. So C comes first. The correct answer here is C. Let's look at our option C. Analyze the impacts and update the risk register. So we are correct. Let's look at the next question. Question number 5. You were appointed a project manager of a project using the hybrid approach. Through the project, the client kept asking for frequency changes. He even told you that he likes flexibility, but also wants strict cost control and proper documentation. You notice that because of these frequent changes, the team morale is dropping, the change requests are piling up, the project governance is becoming unclear. What should the project manager do next? Switch the project to agile to enable you handle the changes. B. Review and tailor the project life cycle and the governance framework. C. Enforce a strict change control and reduce the flexibility. D. Escalate the change to the sponsor and request for project planning. Let me say something here, very important, you should know. Hybrid approach is a combination of the waterfall and the agile method. And the agile method is flexible, allows for flexibility. But meanwhile, the waterfall method or the traditional approach allows for proper documentation, and there's but also wants strict cost control and proper documentation. This is typical of a waterfall, but he wants uh, frequent changes. This is characteristics of agile. So what should the project manager do next? The change requests are piling up, the project governance is becoming unclear. What should the project manager do next? As the project manager or the scrum master, it is your responsibility to guide your team. So let's look at the option. Switch the projects fully to agile to enable you handle the changes. Is that the first thing to do? Already the question is saying it's an hybrid project. It's a hybrid project. So B, review and tailor. What does tailor mean here? Tailor means to conform to the project with the client's desire, the client's goal. So review and tailor the project life cycle and the governance framework. This looks more like the correct answer. So let's give it a double check. Enforce a strict change control and reduce flexibility for an agile project. An agile project allows for flexibility. D. Escalate the challenge to the sponsor and request for project replanning. Like I said earlier, escalation should be the last thing to do after you must have tried every other thing before you start escalating. So option D is out of it completely. Let's look at B again. Review and tailor the project life cycle and the governance framework. So the correct answer in this question is B. Agile hybrid is a combination of agile and the traditional project cycle. And the traditional project allows you to allows for documentation. Meanwhile, agile allows you to make change even at the beginning, at the middle of the project, even at the end of the project. You can make change. That is the beauty about agile. You can make change. So the correct answer, like I said, is B. Let's look at the option. The correct answer is B. Review and tailor the project life cycle and the governance framework. Let's move to our next question. Question number 6. An agile team is in the middle of a sprint when a key stakeholder, upon realizing that the product being developed will no longer deliver the desired outcome due to an expected market change, the stakeholder asks the Scrum Master to stop the work immediately and replace the futures with the current market trends. What should the Scrum Master do? Ask the Scrum Master to stop the work immediately. And replace the futures with the current market trend. What should the Scrum Master do next? Okay. A. Stop the sprint and replace the futures with those of the current market trend. B. Ask the product owner to update the backlog immediately and introduce the new futures. And innovations to conform with the current market trend. That is, okay, let's keep this. Allow the team to complete the sprint and address the change during the next sprint planning. Okay. D, escalate the request to the stakeholder, to the project sponsor. This is out of it. There's something you should know about sprints. In the middle of the sprints, you don't change, you don't stop, introduce new features in the middle of a sprint. You have to finish that sprint. Then you now look at the new features that is being introduced, put it in the product backlog before you now start sorting and to know which to take. That is the first thing to do. You put it in product backlog immediately. So let's look at B again. Ask the product owner to update the backlog immediately and introduce the new features and innovations to conform with the current market reality. C, allows the team to complete the sprints and address the change during the next sprints. This is the best thing to do for an agile project or a scrum project. You first complete the sprints, then you now address the issue during the next sprint planning meeting. If to discard, reintroduce the new features into the backlog, and you agree on what to do next. So D is totally out of it. So the correct answer is C, as selected. Allow the team to complete the sprint and address the change during the next sprint planning. Question number 7. During a sprint session, an agile team discovers that a very important user story may not be completed due to technical issues. The product owner is insisting that the story must be delivered to meet the deadline set by the sponsor. The team believes that going ahead with the story delivery will compromise the product quality. What should the project manager do next? Ask the team to go ahead and deliver the story since the product owner determines the priority. B, encourage collaboration between the product owner and the team to review and evaluate the sprint objectives. C, help the team remove technical constraints to enable the team meet the sprint goal. Okay, let's see. Let's look at B again. Encourage collaboration between the product owner and the team to review and evaluate the sprint objectives. That is the correct thing to do. A, ask the team to go ahead and deliver the story since the product owner determines the priority. In Agile, collaboration is the key. Collaboration is the key. It is a collective decision. So this doesn't look like it. We'll come back to it. Then D, escalate the issue to the sponsor to know the story still meets the objective. During this, okay, let's look at these questions fast. During a sprint session, an agile team discovers that a very important user story may not be completed due to technical issues. The product owner is insisting that the product owner is the owner of all the stories, okay, must still be delivered to meet the deadline set by the sponsor. The team believes that going ahead with the story delivery will compromise the product quality. What should the project manager do next? B, encourage collaboration between the product owner and the team to review and evaluate the sprint objectives. you have to come together and evaluate. That is the collaboration. That is the collaboration between the product owner and the team to review and evaluate the sprint objective. That is the correct thing to do. Collaboration. Scrum encourages collaboration. So that is part of one of the rules of Scrum. It encourages collaboration. So number 7, B should be the correct answer. Let's see. The correct answer to question 7 is B. Encourage collaboration between the product owner and the team to review and evaluate sprint objectives. That is the correct answer. Why this question is kind of tricky is that we are looking at the team autonomy. In Agile or Scrum, the team has autonomy to make decisions on their own without interference. And the product owner is the owner of the products. So, two items combining are in this question, the question. Project manager role in Agile is more like an advisory role. So that Scrum Master's role is more like an advisory role in Agile. So that is the correct answer. Many students might fail this question because it's kind of tricky. So let's look at the next question. Question number 8. Two senior members of the project team disagree strongly on how to resolve a complex technical issue on the project. Their disagreement is having a negative impact on the project, and the project meetings are becoming increasingly chaotic. Both individuals are highly respected technical professionals. What should the project manager do? Choose the solution with the lowest risk to the project and implement it. B. Ask the team members to vote on the preferred technical solution. C. Facilitate a structural discussion to evaluate options objectively. D. Escalate the conflict to the senior manager. So let's go through the question again. Two senior members of a project team disagree strongly on how to resolve a complex technical issue on a project. These are common scenario questions. This is typical scenario questions. You find this on sites all the time. Their disagreement is having a negative impact on the project, and the project meetings are becoming increasingly chaotic. Both individuals are highly respected technical professionals. What should the project manager do? Choose the solution with the lowest risk to the project and implement it. Choose the solution with the lowest risk to the project and implement. How do you know that a solution has the lowest risk? Okay, let's continue. Yes, every project manager wants a solution that has lower risk, but how do you know about which has a lower risk? B. Ask the team members to vote on preferred technical solution. This is not an option. What of on a preferred technical solution? Yes, okay, they can vote, but then how do you on preferred? What if they vote based on sentiments? Okay. C. Facilitate a structural discussion to evaluate options objectively. This looks more technical. This looks more like a technical solution. D. Escalate the conflict to the senior management. Escalation should be out of it. That should be the last thing you are to do. What should the project manager do? Okay, let's look at, we have 3 options that are marked. Let's look for the best. Choose the solution with the lowest risk to the project and implement it. How do you know that this project has a lower risk? So this is still weak. This is weak. Ask the team members to vote on preferred technical solution. On preferred, this is more on sentiment. On preferred technical solution, this is based on sentiment, more like. C. Facilitate a structural discussion to evaluate options objectively. This looks more like technical thing to do. This is, to me, this is correct thing. This is the best option. So C, technically, is the answer, and that is the answer to this question. Let's look at the option to the question. C, we are correct. The correct answer to the question 8 is C. Facilitate a structural discussion to evaluate options objectively. In a technical project, you don't just take option based on sentiment. You have to look at the technicality. Does it conform with what will give the project the desired results? Does it conform to the objective of the project, the primary objective of the project? We don't vote based on sentiment. So voting takes that one out. C is the correct option. That is the right thing to do. So let's look at, let's move to question 9. Question 9. You are a project manager in a building project. These are all scenario questions. And your project is in the execution stage. A key supplier has just informed you that a critical component of the project will be delivered 2 weeks late. This delay could impact the critical parts. The sponsor of your project is requesting your immediate action. What should you do first? Update the schedule to reflect the delay. What should you do first? A key supplier has just informed you that a critical component of the project will be delivered 2 weeks late. This delay could impact the critical part. Then that means it will affect the schedule date. The sponsor of your project is requesting your immediate action. What should you do first? Update the schedule to reflect the delay. Is that the first thing to do? Let's see. Let's give it a small mark. Analyze the impact of the delay on the schedule using schedule compression technique. This looks more like the thing to do. You analyze the impact of the delay on the schedule using schedule compression technique. Meet with the supplier to negotiate the fastest delivery plan. Yes, you can meet with the supplier, but you need to know what impact the delay should have on the project. You meet with the supplier, but you need to know the impact, because the schedule might not only be the impact might not only be on the schedule. The impact might as well be on costs. So let's look at D. Submit a change request to the change control board requesting an extension of time. Well, you can do this, but this is not the first thing to do. It's after you must have exhausted all avenue. Then before you can submit a change request, analyze. The correct thing is analyze the impact of the delay on the schedule using the schedule compression technique. It's after you must have done this, then you can do this. B. Then, if you cannot get a reasonable tentative, then you now have to confirm that the project will be delayed. Then the only thing for you to do is to submit a change request. But the first thing to do is B. The correct answer to question 9 is B. Analyze the impact of the delay on the schedule using schedule compression technique. Well, question number 10. You are the project manager of a government-funded infrastructure project. The project is technically viable. and all design works have been completed and approved by the regulatory authority. The project team is made up of highly skilled and experienced workers. Midway into the execution work, you notice the following. The sponsor begins delaying the funding approval. Senior stakeholders start giving conflicting directives. As a project manager, you decide to escalate the risk, but decisions are repeatedly deferred. No major technical risks have materialized. No major technical risks have materialized. Yet the project's progress steadily slows. As a project manager, what should you conclude was the primary root cause of the project failure? A. Inadequate risk management planning. B. Poor technical feasibility analysis. C. Weak stakeholder engagement and lack of sustained executive sponsorship. D. Ineffective schedule control and monitoring. This is quite a handful. Say you are the project manager of a government. I read again. You are the project manager of a government-funded infrastructure project. The project is technically viable. These are key issues here. And the design works have been completed and approved by the regulatory authority. So there's no issue of with the design. The project is made up of highly skilled, take note of this, highly skilled workers. Midway into the execution work, you notice the following. The sponsor begins delaying funding approval. Okay? Senior stakeholders start giving conflicting directives. Okay? As a project manager, you decide to escalate the risk, but the decisions are repeatedly deferred. No major technical risks have materialized. No major technical risks. So, no major technical risks. Yet the project progress steadily slows. As a project manager, what should you conclude was the primary root cause of the project failure? A. Inadequate risk management plan. This can be correct. Let's see. B. Poor technical feasibility analysis. Already from the question, you were told that approval have been given, highly skilled and experienced workers, technical viable, and all other. That means the project is technically viable and all design works have been completed and approved by regulatory authority. So this knocks out B, poor technical feasibility analysis, because already it said that project is technically viable. Then C, weak stakeholders engagement and lack of sustained executive sponsorship. This can also be an option. D, ineffective schedule control and monitoring. There's nowhere on this project it was in the question that it was mentioned that there's an ineffective schedule control, but rather what we were told is that but decisions are repeatedly deferred. Because of decisions that are technically repeatedly deferred, the project progress steadily slows down, and yet no major technical risk has been recorded. So we are now left with two options: inadequate risk management planning. This could be an option. Let's look at C again. Weak stakeholder engagement and lack of sustained executive sponsorship. Between A and C, which of them is the best option here? Remember, they said no major technical issue has been risk has materialized, yet the project steadily slows down. But here, here lies the answer. Say senior stakeholders start giving conflicting directives. Senior stakeholders start giving conflicting directives. The sponsor begins delaying the funding approval. This is another hint. Midway into the execution, you notice the following. So that means it was never an issue from the onset, but midway into the project, you start noticing the stakeholders are having what we call power play here. So with that, the best option, you say weak stakeholders engagement, because as a project manager, you are expected to continuously engage your stakeholders, and lack of sustained executive sponsorship. Yes, the sponsors beginning delaying funding approval, maybe due to some political reasons, or they are no longer interested in the project. So if you have sustained stakeholder engagement, you will definitely know when this issue creeps in. Issue of dissatisfaction, issue of conflicting interests in the project, and due to this now gave birth to lack of sustained executive sponsorship. So the correct answer is C. The correct answer to question number 10 is C. Weak stakeholder engagement and lack of sustained executive sponsorship. As a project manager, this is one thing you should continuously do. Engage your stakeholders. Communication, very important in any project management. When communication breaks down, your project begins to suffer. So, sustain stakeholder engagement will help you know when an issue is coming up, because it's not possible for the stakeholders to just wake up all of a sudden and start stop the project funding. So, but once there is sustained stakeholder engagement, you will notice when such issues start creeping in. That is the correct answer. Question number 11. You were appointed as a project manager of an agile project to build a digital platform. Midway into the project, you had a discussion with a senior stakeholder, and he told you to add a new regulatory feature, and he wants it added in the next sprint. The project owner disagrees because the feature has low customer value and the sprint is already full. The stakeholder escalates disagreement to senior management, and you are told to just make it happen. What should you do? A. Increase the features to the next sprint and ask your team to put in their best to achieve the desired goal. B. Escalate the issue to the senior management for a final decision. C. Organize a meeting between the product owner and the stakeholders together and discuss value and priority. D. Discuss the sprints and replan the project to accommodate everyone's concern. This is an interesting question. First and foremost, I want us to identify certain important things before we answer this question. First, who is the owner of the backlog? The project owner is the owner of the backlog. The project owner is the owner of the backlog. The product owner, along with the team, prioritizes all features that comes to them, and they rank it according to priority. The most important comes first, will be ranked first, while the other subsequently will follow depending on the priority to the project owner. So now with that, we can now answer this question. Say, integrate and had a discussion with senior stakeholder. Here, you were appointed the project manager of an agile project to build a digital platform. Midway into the project, you had a discussion with the senior stakeholder and he told you to add a new regulatory features. Okay. And he wants it added to the next sprint. Underline this, in the next sprint. This is feasible. The project owner agrees because the future has low customer value. Who determines value in a project is the project owner. He's the owner of the backlog. And the sprint is already full. The stakeholder decides to escalate to senior management and you are told to just make it happen. Okay? What should you do? Remember, you are a mediator here. Include the futures, and in an agile project, the project manager is supposed to be a servant leader. So now let's look at it. Include the futures to the next sprint and ask your team to put in their best to achieve the desired goal. Okay, let's see this. Let's check other options. B, escalate the issue to senior management for a final decision. Already you have been told to make it happen. You are told to just make it happen. What should you do first? So that means okay, let's look at C now. Organize a meeting between the product owner and the stakeholders together and discuss value and priority. Yes, this is a good option. You organize a meeting between the product owner and the stakeholders together and discuss priority to know whether the initial priority is still what they need or if they've changed their desire, if the initial backlog is still valuable to them. So you have to hold a meeting to determine that. Then D, stop the sprint and replan the project to accommodate everyone's concern. You don't stop a sprint midway. You don't stop a sprint midway. Say stop the sprint and replan. You don't stop a sprint midway. So this is out of it. So what is the correct answer now? Let's look at A again. Include the futures to the next sprint. Well, you can do this. This is a very good thing to do. And ask your team to put in their best to achieve the desire. You can't just include, you have to prioritize. When you are bringing in a new future, you have to reprioritize the whole backlog and determine which is more valuable. Then you now pick according to value. So this is out of it. This knocks this out. So we are now left with C. The correct answer is C. Yeah. Question number 11. The correct answer is C. Organize a meeting between the product owner and stakeholders together and discuss value and priority in agile products. Question number 12. For 3 consecutive sprint sessions, your agile team is here to deliver all the works committed to them. Though the team morale is very high, good indicator. No team member seems to be derailing the activities of the team, another good indicator. When you inquire to know the reason they haven't been able to deliver all works committed to them the last 3 consecutive sprints, the team response is that an unexpected works keep creeping in, that is scope creep. The management wants you to fix the issue quickly. What is the best thing to do? First and foremost, let's look at the option. Increase the sprint duration so that the team can have more time. Sprint duration, you don't do this. Start tracking their tasks more strictly and demand for daily progress updates. in between a sprints, you don't do this. You give them freedom as a project manager to work. C, facilitate a retrospective focus on how work is being selected for the sprint and how better workflow can improve. Let's go to D, then we'll come back to C again. Replace some inexperienced team members with better experienced Scrum members. Okay, before I'll comment about D, let's define what is this first. Retrospective. Retrospective is a meeting that takes place at the end of each sprint, and the primary reason is for the team to know what they did really well. That is the first question they ask themselves in the retrospective meeting. 2, they ask another question: what mistakes did we make during the course of the sprint? The third one, they ask, very important, how can we build an even better product or have a better sprint? These are important questions, and it is important for you to know that a retrospective is an in-house meeting. It's different from a review meeting. It's an in-house meeting being attended by 3 important: by the project team, 2, by the product owner, 3, by the scrum master or the project manager. So if there is an issue of project creep, this is the best forum where it can be discussed, the retrospective. So at that in that meeting, what went wrong can be discussed. How can we improve what on our sprints? And the second one is the third one. I mean to say, how did we go wrong? What mistakes did we make? Before you talk about the third one, which is how can we correct our mistakes? So now let's look at D. Replace some inexperienced team members with better experienced Scrum team members. But already we're told that the morale is very high. No team member seems to be derailing the activities of the team, even though you cannot even do this in the middle of a sprint. So already this is out. This gives us the best answer, and that is the best thing to do in an agile project. So let's look at the answer. The correct answer to this question number 12 is C. The correct answer is C. Facilitate a retrospective focus on how work is being selected for the sprints and how better workflow can improve. So thank you for this. Question number 13. As a project manager executing a fixed price contract, a major risk you planned for and budgeted for has since passed its expected stage. Your project is currently under budget. Your sponsor now says, since the risks didn't happen, use the saved money to add extra features at no cost. What is the most appropriate response? A. Agree to his demand, since the contingency sum for the risk was not used. B. Use the management reserve to cover for the extra costs. C. Explain to your sponsor that contingency sum is not for free scope addition and treat his request as a change request. D. Accept his request so as to maintain a good client relationship. This question is quite direct. Let's look at the key features. A fixed price project, a major risk you plan for and budgeted for has since passed its expected stage. That means the project is now in the safe stage. Your project is currently under budget. What is the meaning of under budget? Under budget means that you have not used up all your budget. You still have reserves, you still have savings. During under budget, your CV is greater than 0. What is CB? Cost variance. And CPI, cost performance index, is as well, is greater than 1. So now let's go on. Your sponsor now says that the risk didn't happen. Use the saved money to add extra features at no cost. What is the most appropriate response? A. Agree to his demand since contingency sum for the risk was not used. You don't do this in a project. Why won't you do this? You don't just agree to his demand since contingency sum. You don't just use up the contingency sum simply because of it was not used. For you to do anything in project management, any change you want to carry out has to go through this management board, change management board. Otherwise, it has to go through the normal process of change control. Otherwise, you might have a scope creep. So B, use the management reserve to cover for the extra costs. You don't do this. This is wrong entirely. It still applies to A. Then C, explain to your sponsor that contingency sum is not for scope addition and treat his request as a change request. Yes, you treat it as a change request. Before you embark on any change request, you must have analyzed it, whether it will add value to the project, its implication, before you embark on that. D, accept his request so as to maintain a good client relationship. This is out of it. So automatically we are left with just one option, C. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is C. We are correct. Explain to your sponsor that contingency sum is not for free scope addition and treat his request as change requests. Question number 14. A project is funded through a complex financing arrangement involving external banks. Early risk workshop identified stakeholder power struggle as low probability, high risk impact. We'll get back to this. Midway into the execution, conflicting instruction from powerful stakeholders, stalled decision making, delayed approvals, and threatening loan disbursement timeline. What should the project manager have done earlier to most effectively reduce the risk? Okay, when a project is low probability and high impacts, low probability means that most likely it is not going to happen. The probability is very low. If we say the probability is 1 to 10, at low probability, that means is within 1 to about 3 or 4. So it's low probability. And high impact means if it eventually, early risk workshop advice stakeholders power struggle. If there is a power struggle, is going to have a high impact on the project. So at this point, you say 9 or 8 to 10. 8 to 10. 8 to 10. So any impacts from power struggle will have a high impact. It might derail the project. That is what he's saying. It might derail the project. Okay, and eventually it did. From this question, what should the project manager have done earlier to most effectively reduce the risks? Because from this question, they say stakeholders stall decision making, delay delayed approvals and threatened loan disbursement. Remember, it's from the bank. The project is being financed from the bank. The project is being funded through complex financing arrangement involving external banks. So let's go to the options. A, added contingency reserve to the cost basements. Adding additional contingency reserve will not even solve this issue because the loan comes from the bank and we're not told that the bank that they've exhausted their budgets. So this has nothing to do with it. It's totally wrong. Develop a more detailed stakeholder engagement and influence strategy. Yes, more detailed stakeholder engagement and influences strategy. This looks more like the answer. C, transfer the risk to external legal advisors. You can do this, but this is not what will solve the problem at that stage. You can do it. Accept the risk since it is politically sensitive. Well, you can do this, but the most important thing is what can you do? Look at the question. Delayed approval and threatened loan disbursement, because even if you accept the risks, the project is still going to derail because there's delay approval and threatened loan disbursement. There's nothing actually, even if you accept it and there's a delay disbursement, that means the project is going to be derailed. What should the project have done earlier to most effectively reduce the risk? Should have done earlier on. This is the correct thing to do. Detailed stakeholder engagement, because when you do this, you'll be able to resolve issues surrounding stakeholders, and when you know sense when the power struggle is coming up and how to mitigate it, you'll be able to come up with effective way to mitigate the risk so that it will not affect the project. Their power struggle should not affect the project. So your stakeholder engagement will help you solve this and influence strategy. So B is the correct answer to question number 14. The correct answer to question number 14 is B. Develop a more detailed stakeholder engagement and influence strategy. We did a similar question like this earlier on, but it's not exactly. This one is more direct. So correct answer is B. Question number 15. Your building project is slipping behind schedule because of some technical issues that came up during the construction work, which were never planned for. The sponsor is insisting that the project must be completed at the scheduled date. The sponsor, without increasing the project risk, because risk will cost a lot of money, time, and several other. So what is the best action available to you? Bring in more skilled resources to speed up the work. You can do this, but is that the best thing to do? So let's check other option. Perform several activities in parallel to regain time. You can do this, but is that the best thing for you to do? But don't forget that perform several activities in parallel can add more risk to the project. Already the project is saying that which never planned for, the sponsor insists that the project must be completed at the scheduled date without increasing the project risk. So this also adding more resources too can add to the project risk, even though it's correct, but it can add to the project risk. So there's a clause here that renders these two options out of the equation. So now let's look. Fast tracking. D says fast track the activities on the critical parts. Yes, you can do this, but still too, fast tracking can add risks to the project. So now let's look at C. Review the project scope to see what can be reduced or deferred. This looks more like it, because review the project scope. You are now going back to the project to check if there are certain things you've added to the project that can be reviewed to see what can be reduced or deferred. So when you go through it, that will give you a better option. Analysis, you must have done your analysis, and if certain things are not really necessary, you can remove them or differ on it for a better time. So the correct answer to this question is C. And in case you are wondering, how can you differ certain things? Say, for instance, you are building a project, a building. You can say, for now, let's complete this project. Certain things like you are maybe, for instance, the project is on an intelligent building, a smart building. You might say certain features of the smart activities are not needed in the immediate. You can defer it for later. You can defer it for later, as long as it will not affect the project. After you must have done your analysis, that what are the things that will not affect this project from being completed and will not affect its performance, its operational performance. So you can defer it. So the correct answer is C. The correct answer is C. Review the project scope to see what can be reduced or deferred. Thank you. Question number 16. As the project manager in charge of a road construction project, your project has cost variance of minus $50,000 and a schedule variance of $30,000. The sponsor sought your assistance to help him interpret the implication of having a negative cost variance and a positive schedule variance. What will be your best response? What will be your best response? Okay, let's look at it. First and foremost, we have to define certain terms. CV here is negative. Cost variance is negative, while schedule variance here, on the other hand, is positive. So what is the meaning of cost variance being negative? That is the first question we have to ask. Cost variance negative means that this project is over budgeted. And what does over budget mean? It means that you have spent more than the design budget, the budget that is allocated for the project. That means cost variance. At that point, your cost variance will be negative. Take for instance, your budget is 50. Let's say your budget is $100,000, and you have spent $150,000. Your cost variance is minus $50, because what you budgeted for the project is $100,000, and now you have spent $50,000 more. So in this case here, we say that the project is over budgeted. Okay, now let's look at this one. A schedule variance of $30. What does this mean? When schedule variance is $30 and in the positive realm, we say the project is ahead of schedule. For instance, we are saying that this project will finish at so date. For instance, let's see, as an example, let's say 30th of July, you are going to finish roofing the roof or complete roofing the roof, and by 15th of July, you have already completed roofing the roof. But in this case, is on monetary value. By 30th of July, you are expected, for instance, to have finished exhausting your $100,000. But by 15th of July, you have completed the job of roofing the roof and you still have $30,000 remaining. So in this case, you say you are ahead of schedule with the cost and the finance. So what will be our option A? A project is behind schedule. Is that what the project is behind schedule and over budget? This is wrong from what we analyzed here. The project is ahead of schedule, yes, and ahead of schedule, but over budgeted. This is correct. The project is behind schedule. This is wrong. And but under budgeted. This is wrong. The project is healthy because schedule is positive. So we are left with B as our option. The correct answer is B. The correct answer to question number 16 is B. The project is ahead of schedule but over budget. Question number 17. You are the project manager of a large infrastructure project. During one of your team routine inspection, your team discovers defects in materials already delivered to site. The supplier argues that the materials supplied meets the specification that were approved at the start of the project. However, your quality engineer believes that the specifications were technically correct but practically weak. Interesting. And recommends improving on the quality tolerance to prevent future failures. This would increase cost and delay the completion time. The sponsor is worried about the public perception and tells you to just approve it now and that the project cannot afford another shortcoming. What should you do first? Okay, let's understand the question first. Let's highlight the major talking points here. You are the project manager of a large infrastructure project. During one of your team routine inspection, your team discovers defects in the material already delivered to site. Okay, the supplier argues that the material supplied meets the specification that were approved at the start of the project. However, your quality engineer believes that the specifications were technically correct but practically weak and recommends improving on the quality tolerance to prevent future failure. This would increase costs and delay the completion time. This will increase costs and delay the completion time. Key points. The sponsor is worried about the public perception and tells you to just approve it now. Okay, the sponsor is now telling you just approve it now and that the project cannot afford another shortcoming. What should you do first? Approve the improved tolerance to stop future defects immediately. Okay, let's look at this. Let's mark it first. Record the issue as quality risk and continue work. Okay, let's mark it first and continue. Reject the proposal because the requirements were already approved. This is out of it. This is an extreme case. Submit the proposal through integrated change control. What is the highlight? Remember that The quality engineer believes that specifications were technically correct but practically weak, and recommends improving the quality tolerance to prevent future failure. Look at this. Another highlight: the fixed material already delivered to site. So, and the sponsor is worried about public perception. Obviously, he should, and tells you to just approve it now, that the project cannot afford another shortcoming. What should you do? For you to approve anything, the requirement is that you first analyze, then the next thing is you submit to the change control board. Then when the change control board approves of it, before you can now implement it. So that is the routine. So approve the tolerance to stop future defects. This is wrong. You are out. Record the issue as quality risk and continue work. You are going to record, but you cannot continue work when it's clear that the public perception is wrong. So this is out of it completely. That is an extreme case. So now we are now left with one only option, which is submit the proposal through the integrated change control process, and that is the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. The correct answer to question 17 is D. Submit the proposal through integrated change control. Question number 8.